Hello, everyone. Books with Banks back again. And for the third time, I'm so happy to be joined once again by my good friend Jared from The Fantasy Thinker. Thank you so much for coming back repeatedly to talk about these books.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alex. I love these books, and as you all know, and
Mhm.
uh, and yeah, it's great to talk about them. Like finally on BookTube. Yeah.
Right, right, right. And we talked just a couple seconds ago before I hit record, but it's cool to see th these aren't the only conversations being had about these books right now. Like Jake from Nerd Level Rising, he's also or he's also making his way through the series. So it's exciting to see a bit more of these classics kind of coming into things. And I feel really happy that now I've finished this classic trilogy that was always just such like a big blind spot. Now, of course, I'm definitely going to continue into the sequel trilogy. I might continue on after that with those last four books. But yeah, how when you finished this trilogy originally, and forgive me if this is treading over some of the same ground that we
Mm.
covered in like the first video, but when you put the power that preserves down, did you have a community or did you have people that you could go to and share your reaction and yeah, and talk to about these?
No,
Okay,
I
okay.
did not. And this was, of course, this was back way back in like 1989 or something like that. Um, yeah, there wasn't a community of readers back then. Like I wouldn't even have known where to look for one at
Okay,
that
sure.
point in
Yeah.
time. Um, and so yeah, I was on an island as far as reading these books were, and to be honest, when I finally got done with the power that preserves, I took a break. It was because it's a pretty intense trilogy,
Oh yeah.
and as far as the writing style, and as it was so different than what I was used to with I was reading Dragonlance, and I was reading Forgotten Realms
Yeah.
stuff, and the writing style was so different from those. And so it was like one of those things where you feel like you accomplished something by
Yeah.
finishing it,
I,
and
I totally agree. Yeah.
and and at the same time just need a quick break to before you delve into the next series. But on my reread many years later, uh I couldn't wait to get to the second
Oh,
trilogy on my
yeah.
reread, that because I was just like, yeah, this because I got so much more out of it on a reread because I was older, more experienced, and I think this series lends itself to a more experienced reader, um,
Sure.
rather than the young man I was at the time, the first time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of to echo a little of what you said there. It's a pretty exhausting reading experience. Just the sort of stamina that he asks of you to especially stick with the Thomas Covenant character and that perspective. Um, so yeah, and then to get to the end and definitely feel the impact of, the end of a lot of epic fantasy series give you a little bit of like a almost an empty feeling. But getting to the end of something like this, where there's been so many kind of prompts to get you thinking about the world and thinking about how fantasy's written in certain ways, uh, it just leaves you with so much that's just mentally kind of taxing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and especially with this trilogy, because the theme is you're fighting against despite. You're fighting against despair.
Yeah.
And of course that's a pretty heavy topic.
Yeah.
And and it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's something that requires exploration and stuff on the reader's part as well as the writer.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's about one. I mean, I guess for everyone watching, we're remaining a little vague and spoiler free right now. We will get into spoilers in a moment. But still remaining spoiler free, there is about half, or like one storyline that takes about half the page time of this third book that just really shows a large group of characters in a sort of constant despair and worsening and worsening situation. Yeah, and so that just really hammers home that theme and really leaves you kind of reeling from that still once you get to the end of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fight to overcome that
Right.
I think he really just shows the difficulty of that and it's not it's never a like a in some books, in some fantasy books, lighter fantasy books, it's kind of a throwaway thing. I conquered, I overcame my obstacles,
Right.
and it's like a celebration, a cheer. But in this one, it's really um it's really so, like, you're exhausted when you overcome those obstacles. You're glad the it's finally over, but
Right.
it was such a process, and it was such a demand on all of your resources and your personal resources. And I think that this this series really shows you what how deep despair can grab somebody, and and uh, and it's not always easy to get over that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we will pivot into spoilers now, unless is there anything you want to add about just the trilogy in general or
Well, all that being said,
mhm.
once again, the land is a wonderful place.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place, and that helps us to offset some of that despair, is the need to preserve that
Yeah.
beautiful setting. Um, and so for all the and there's also tons of just cool fantasy stuff in
Yeah.
here as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of cool, really cool fantasy stuff
Yeah.
in these books. So.
Yeah. I'll say real quickly, if anyone's starting the series, so I did a or I was in a group having a discussion about Malazan recently, and someone had mentioned in that discussion that they read the first Thomas Covenant book and it really wasn't for them, and so they haven't picked up the next couple. But I could understand where they were coming from. That said, book two and book three, I think are I prefer them to the first one. I did enjoy the first one though, so I am starting off at a slightly different place. But I
Mm,
do think most readers, um, if you start reading and you're not exactly getting what Donaldson's going for in that first book, or maybe you're bouncing off of it a little bit, I can't recommend enough to continue at least get to around the middle of the second book because that's where just structurally things get really interesting and um I don't know I think the series is wonderful and I would hate for someone to just I guess be uh thrown off of it from the
yeah,
first book. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you, you can judge the book as a book for itself. Um, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people veer into judging the series just by one book instead
Right.
of judging the series for the series.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think each of the three books do something slightly different. Like they all feel a bit different. That said, I think book two and three feel more similar to each other than book one does to either. So, or maybe in other words, book three feels a little bit more like a direct sequel to book two than book two does to the first one. Not by much, but um, yeah, and I think that tends to happen with trilogies, especially. The next two are
Mm.
kind of part one and part two of a story. That's not really what's going on here, but you know, I think that's common for yeah for fantasy.
Yeah. Well, he I think the timeline between book two and three is a little shorter,
Yeah,
as far as when it starts.
right, right.
'Cause we had the first two books we had like what, a 40-year gap or
40,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, and so the timeline's a lot closer in this one, so that
yeah,
they tend to, that's how they relate a little closer because of that. and that's actually apropos for the series because
Oh,
the closer in time things are, the more they're going to relate to each other.
right,
That's
right,
how
yeah.
life works, right? Yeah.
Okay, so full spoilers starting now for Power That Preserves. Um, I think the first thing I want to talk about is where the book starts, because each of these has their real world section, where in the
Hmm.
first one he's walking into town to pay his or to make a deposit or whatever at the bank, and he almost gets hit by a car. The second one he gets it. He's a gets picked up by a truck driver and goes to like a bar outside of town, and then he gets drunk and kicked out of the bar. And then in this one, he's not taking care of himself or cleaning the cut on his head. He's seems pretty much resigned to his fate as a leper, that resigned or distracted from, I guess, the reality of like how close he is to um, being in some really like serious health dangers. Uh, then he's like wandering into town on the outskirts of town every now and then, and there's like um, some religious speaker comes to preach about something. And so he goes and confronts that guy. But then, like, the real focus, or I guess what it's all building to, is he's in the forest and there's a little girl who's been bitten by a snake and he wants to save her. And then Lord Moram and everyone in the land, or in Revelstone, they're trying to summon Thomas Covenant to help win this impending war with Lord Fowl. So I guess I'll pause there to hear your reactions to kind of that opening uh,
Yeah.
narrative. Yeah.
I, I really like this opening because it shows you how Donaldson doesn't just repeat himself because
Right.
he could have easily just said, "All right, this time he he hurts himself in this way and gets summoned," or
Right.
it could have been just a quick, simple somebody else is summoning him for whatever reason. But with this one, I love how um, Covenant we're shown that he was actually able to refuse the summoning,
Right. Right.
and that haven't happened before.
Right.
And that and I love how that changes the nature of the summoning and the magic, and whether or not how it relates to how he feels to whether it's real or not. And
Yeah.
'cause he doesn't believe it's real, he thinks it's a dream. And it just reminded me of when you ever have those moments where you're dreaming and you kind of wake up,
Yeah.
but you kind of don't want it to end, and where you can kind of go in and control the dream a little bit because
Yeah.
you're
Huh?
in
Yeah.
that half awake state.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it reminded me of a little bit. So Covenant was able to control the dream at that point and stop the summoning so he could save the girl. Um, and then when he finally did save the girl, he ends up poisoning himself,
Yeah.
and he's like, okay, I can go back into the dream now.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, oh, I can go back to sleep and get back into that dream.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I thought that was pretty cool how he pulled that off. And it just really related to how Covenant thinks about this place as a dream, you know? And I thought that was brilliant. I love that how he started this one off.
Yeah, it's my favorite opening section. And yeah, like you said, it boils down to his power to resist and to refuse the summons, and this whole like idea of go to this land where they expect him to be able to save thousands of or hundreds of thousands of people, or and he thinks that's a could still be a dream, or stay in the real world and definitely try to save this one girl's life. And so I mean, it's just an interesting ethical question
Mm.
that's posed. It's sort of like it's a more interesting version of the trolley car problem than I've ever heard before. So. Um, Yeah, no, I love the whole opening section. Um, and then of course that kind of leads us to when he does finally say he's gonna rest, and he's, I guess, either accepting the dreaming kind of embrace of the land or accepting death. That like that there's sort of like a blurry, like he's just laying there against the tree, like he could just be about to die.
Yeah.
And then Foam Follower and Triok summon him into the land, which feels like such a great moment because we haven't seen Foam Follower for a whole book. And um, yeah, how did you feel seeing him again?
Yeah, well, I know that I may be projecting into the past, but I feel like I would have cheered
Yeah,
at seeing Foam Follower again, because we like you said, we missed him in the second book. We didn't see him, and I was like, oh, and that's like, oh wow, Foam Follower is back. But then you're like, oh wait, this guy Treok's back. What's he gonna do? Why is he
right, right,
summoning Covenant? Why would he want to?
right.
He hated him,
Uh,
um, and so it really it brings that it just brings more weight to what happened, the things that Covenant did in the first book. It brings, of course, it brings that back. It's a reminder of his sin, and and it uh, and it brings more weight to it. And of course, Triok's a lot older,
yeah,
and you got to wonder what effects that's going to have on his view towards Covenant and stuff, and all the stuff that happened. And so it was fascinating to have those two be, because we know if they die,
yeah.
you know, back he
That's it for
goes.
Covenant. Yeah,
Right. So how does that work when they're both kind of summoning them?
right, right.
And it was just it brought up all these questions about how it all works and stuff like that. And there's no real answers because this isn't like a hard magic system or anything like that.
Right, right, right.
There's no it works like this. And it's it's magic and it's dream and
Yeah,
it's as far as Covenant's concerned. So there's no rules in dreams. And
right,
so
right.
uh so I I really like I really enjoyed how Donaldson just changed things around and changed and brought wonder to the rules or the means of magic without contradicting himself in any way that
Yeah,
and so that it's just really cool. I really like how this book started off.
yeah, yeah. I guess also speaking of how it started off and moving away from Treyarch for a second, I want to kind of come back to him. But the structure of this book isn't quite as, I guess, divided as, well, it's pretty divided, but it's not maybe as jarring, I guess, as
Hmm.
the surprise we get in the second one, where all of a sudden Hyle Troy's the other main character. In this one, it's Lord Moram leading the defense at the siege of Revelstone. And between these summoning efforts of Covenant, we get one of the first of many pretty lengthy chapters or sections where it's just Moram and all of the characters that we've come to know and love there defending that kind of last great place that represents our heroes. Um, and so then throughout the book, there's a couple times we bounce back and forth between what they're doing there and what Covenant's doing
Yeah.
in the South, and whether or not they have kind of ramifications on each other. And there's also like at first they don't even know that Covenant's been summoned into the world at some point by someone else because
Yeah.
Triac and Foam Follower are way off down at Kevin's Watch in the South. So yeah, how did you like the how much time we spent at Revelstone with Moram and kind of him stepping up as more of a, even more of a like a central character.
Yeah. It's an interesting question because we've never it's weird it's funny because the first book was all Covenant, all
Hmm.
focused. The second book we actually get another viewpoint with Hyle Troy, but it's still somebody from our world.
Right, right.
This book, all of a sudden, we're getting a viewpoint somebody from this world. We're getting Moram's viewpoint, and Moram's been, he's been a steady character throughout the whole series, which is interesting because I think the act of Morham trying to summon Covenant
Mhm.
gives gives the excuse to see things through Moram's viewpoint.
Right, right.
It was just like there's some connection there between him and Covenant, and so you can almost say that Covenant as a is in touch with some sort of omniscience to able to have Moram be a viewpoint through the dream that
Right.
Covenant's experiencing. And so it's really cool because it's very you can take Moram's having a viewpoint in a lot of different ways, but I think it just says something about the uh, the power of either the land's hold upon Covenant as a real entity or the power of Covenant's ability to weave these dreams and make them their its own you know impact on himself,
Yeah.
and so you can take that in many ways, and I think it's pretty ingenious how Donaldson weaves all that as books go on, and he makes these different points in each book as they go on, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I definitely felt here. This is the storyline I was alluding to earlier that this is like despair and just the desperation
Mm,
of this whole team defending this place is it gets so difficult and it's so depressing and yeah,
yeah, because the magical assault of the Raver,
yeah, yeah.
um, what was his name?
Is that one
Is that Satan's fist, or is
I
that
think that's Satan's Fist
is it? Yeah.
or yeah, I think so.
Um, the magical assault is the despair, is the
Right, right.
collapse of morale of the whole place, um, and that is and just to go back to our last discussion when we were
Mhm.
wondering about the Illyra stone,
Right, right, yeah.
it, it was only a piece that the forester
Right, right, because he still
destroyed.
has another, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Satan's fist has another piece, so there were pieces of it, and that's what I couldn't remember last time we were talking. But, but and so that was yeah. So that whole despair is that's really it was really like it really stuck with you. Like it really, it was almost like you couldn't wait to get back to Covenant's
Right, yeah,
story
yeah.
with Phone Follower because
Uh-huh.
Phone Follower um Phone Follower is just a joy to read about. So
Right,
you couldn't wait to get back, but you still had to know. You had to know what was going to happen,
right.
and how they were going to get out of that. And it was tense and it was stressful at the same time. And then you get back to the journey, the typical fantasy journey. We got
Yeah,
that going
yeah.
on, which is always fun. But
Right, right. Yeah. So returning to Triac briefly, there's this whole section early on where uh we sort of get like a mini story within a story. Well, it's not a story within a story. It's from Triac's point of view, where he goes on a quest to, I believe he's aiming to get to the forest that Hyle Troy wound up in at the end of book two, and he's trying to get there so he can get a message up to Revelstone. And he has some of the other what are they the stone downers he has some of them with him and there's a raver that's on their tail and it's like blistering cold and there's like wolves that they have to fight off and it's just like a blizzard is coming in and it's this whole it must be a good 40 or 50 pages or so of sort of like a short story of this one side character's quest um And it happens pretty early on to the point where after that chapter, that group of chapters, I was thinking, oh wow, we've spent so much time with the Lords up in Revelstone, and now we've just spent this whole chapter with Triarch. We probably have only seen Covenant for at most a third of this book, and barely any of the time that he's actually been in the land. Um, but yeah, no, so just structurally, that's what's interesting is that we have yet another departure from the Covenant focus, or from the Covenant
Mhm.
POV. Um, and then just the way that the whole thing's written with the Blizzard, I just really loved. And it's ultimately a failed quest. Triarch does not succeed in delivering his message. The Raver takes him and takes over
That's
his
right.
body. Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that storyline stuck out to you or your thoughts on that part.
I didn't quite remember that part at all,
Okay, okay.
but I do remember eventually. Yeah, I remember eventually when the Raver um, announces, finally lets Covenant know that he's had
Yeah,
Triarch
yeah,
under control,
yeah.
for a while or whatever. I don't remember how long it was, um, but that was, of course, that's always scary when when
Right.
when somebody's like, I'm actually this Raver, and
Uh,
I've been thwarting you this whole time or whatever. And
right.
I forget, did he want to? Oh, wasn't it? Didn't the Raver mention to his Covenant that Lord Fowl forbade him from trying to take the ring?
I think so. So like w when we see Triarch again, Covenant has just been through this whole health scare ordeal in the forest, and then he comes out of the woods, and there's Triarch who invites him to like sit down by the fire, and he's talking, but it's pretty clear to us, at least, who aren't in Covenant's exhausted, unwell or unclean, unhealthy state. That this is not actually Triarch. This is the Raver pretend or controlling him. Um, and yeah, I forget exactly. I think he just wanted him to turn away or to to not keep going. I don't remember exactly what he was trying to do there. Um, but yeah, he was definitely working against Covenant to try and stop him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think um, after that encounter, and I don't remember how it ended with Triarch and the Raver there, but I think it was after that encounter that Covenant finally said, "I've had enough. I'm gonna go."
Yeah, so the what that builds to is it's Triarch summons more beasts or whatever, and then they all take Covenant to this giant statue thing that I guess is like that marks the border between
Right,
like the healthier land and the lower kind of land. I forget what that's called, but Elena or the spirit of Elena is there, and she's been using the staff of law, I guess, to control the weather, making it so miserable, like where with the blizzards and miserable during the siege. And then in that confrontation, that's where Covenant, he's like, I've finally had enough. He breaks the staff of law, um,
right.
hurts or banishes the raver that had Triarch's body, and then he's like, okay, ban our phone follower, let's go. Let's go to Ridgick Tome and finish this up. Yeah. But
Yeah,
Banner refuses to, I think, continue on with
that's
them.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Yeah, he wants. Yeah, so that's where he decides to
Yeah.
take on Fowl at Fowl's crutch.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it was just very, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. What shocked me at the beginning, near the beginning of the book, is finding out about the blood god.
Yeah,
And
that they're gone. Yeah. Uh-huh.
they gave up their vow
Yeah.
because, in the last book, some of their members got corrupted,
Uh-huh.
and they couldn't reconcile themselves with that. Um, and
Right.
it really echoed. the the same thing that happened with the giants
Hmm.
when the giants let themselves be killed by the ravens because
Yeah.
they couldn't they couldn't take the fact that they were conquered by these ravens, that they were overcome by, despite and by despair and what have you.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the blood god. It echoed that we failed in our ability to our vow wasn't enough to overcome despite,
Right. Right.
and thus we're going to pack it up and you know and
Yeah.
leave. And Banner's older now. Like
Right.
he
Yeah. Yeah.
aged,
Yeah.
and he's
When
down
they
there
had
taking.
never. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he joins the ramen, taking care of the horses and stuff.
Uh-huh.
That was just like, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I love that conversation that is I mean it comes out near the end of the second book, but it runs throughout this whole one or this whole third book because like you said, all of the commentary about the Blood Guard or this idea that the lords and kind of the current governing body and like philosophy of the people in charge of the land, they have sort of I guess limited themselves in terms of what they can do to resist Lord Val because of things like the Oath of Peace and stuff like this, that they can't uphold certain vows while also trying to like be respectful um, of is it Kevin who was the the last of those lords, or was he the first one? Um,
He was the one that did the ritual desecration.
Okay, yeah, right, right, yeah. So yeah, like they can't be loyal to Kevin because to continue to, I guess, like serve what he wanted to happen, there would have to be more betrayal, more violence, more
Right.
whatever that would violate the more recent vows that everyone's made. So yeah, just that really interesting sort of like pacifist commentary. But of course,
Mm.
there is self-defense action and combat in the previous books. But I mean, like especially in book two, you have an outsider, Hyle Troy, leading the war defense. So that kind of takes a little bit of the onus off of the people in the land. In this one, it's Lord Moram who's
Yep.
leading the defense. Yeah, I don't know, just a lot of really, really fascinating stuff that just really sits with you. It's difficult to get it out of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always found the blood god, the whole idea of the vow and stuff fascinating, and
Yeah,
to see that broken in this book was was jarring,
yeah,
and it was meant to be. It was supposed to shock you,
yeah.
and yeah, they couldn't no longer serve the vow because they had been conquered by corruption.
Hmm.
That was just awesome,
Yeah.
awesome stuff.
And also what's interesting is it's like they feel that they've been conquered by corruption. No one else necessarily sees that or
Right.
feels that, but that doesn't matter. If they think they've been corrupted, then they've been corrupted. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I also really like there's a moment where I guess it's shortly after we run into Banner again, because it's when once um, Foam Follower and Lena, who's back in a big way, she's an important character in this,
Yeah.
accompanying Covenant, having forgiven Covenant. But Foam Follower, Lena, and Covenant, they get to kind of the Ramen lands, and the Ramen uh, capture them or take them they kind of take them in for questioning. Uh, and I
Right.
love the jarring like sense of anxiety and fear they have of Foam Follower because all of the Ravers, what they've done recently is take over the bodies of the giants and subjugate the giant and commit mass slaughter, genocide against the giants. So why is Foam Follower safe? Like why wasn't he around when and they're so suspicious of him more
Mm.
so than any of us reading the book are because we were just happy to see him again. Um, but yeah, so that's really I found that really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that because that's, like you said, we're happy to see him, but,
Right.
you gotta look at it from their point of view, you know? Are you just another raver amongst, that's gonna come and wipe out our people now, the same way? Um, but and of course, the ramen's biggest concern are the Ranyin, the horses,
Yeah, yeah. And the
and,
health of them. And and that's also a depressing part of the book that
yeah.
they're all starving and like there's none of their I don't how do you say it? I'm in a behavim or whatever their
Yeah,
grass is that
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That the healthy grass that they eat
Uh-huh.
there, yeah,
Yeah.
and,
That's poison to or at least trippy to humans. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and and there's also a lack of, hurt loam,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh. Yeah.
So Covenant didn't he get, like, healed by, like, webs or spiders or something?
Yeah.
Or
Oh, yeah. Oh, and when in I guess before we started talking about the spoilers, you were talking about the wonders of the land and the cool like fantasy stuff going on in here. That's one of the first things that came to my mind when you said that was there's like the oh what are they called the people who are are they unfettered or the
Yes,
right
unfettered, yeah.
there's I believe she's one of them, but she's sort of like a healing witch, like this kind of fantasy trope of the woodsy healing witch, who she uses spider webs to, or no, do the spiders use their own webs to heal him? And then she finds him, and his wounds have been sealed up, and I guess protected from infection by the spider webs. It's so cool. It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool, and I love this concept of, this unfettered one,
Hmm.
because it just opens up the possibilities of there being other powers in this world that we
Right.
don't know about, you know?
Right.
Just like
It's not like we know all the good guys, we know all the bad guys,
yeah,
good, we know everyone.
we
No,
don't.
it's
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
unfettered people. And
and I love
even
that.
yeah, what's his name? The Cariol
Yeah.
Wildwood.
Yeah, Forrest Gump, yeah.
Right, what's he called or like
The Forest Owl, Forest Owl,
right,
yeah,
the Forestels sort of have kind of like nature does their its own agency or its
mm,
own agenda outside of exactly what the powers of Revelstone or the powers of Riddick Tome want going on. So that's
yeah.
all really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, because that you find that out in the second book, but there's this Forest Owl thing
Right, right.
who's like everybody's like, "Oh, he's something different.
Uh-huh.
He's not on a side."
Right.
He
He
has
might
like
kill all of us. Like,
yeah, right.
yeah.
He like you said, he has his own agency,
Uh-huh.
his own goals, and then now you're introduced to this other type of person, creature,
Uh-huh.
whatever it is, these unfettered ones.
Hmm.
Are there more of them? Is there
Right, right.
and it starts you thinking like there's more to this world than just Covenant being a chosen one, unwilling chosen one, uh, and being summoned to fight against the bad guy. There's more to it than that. There's all this other stuff going on that you don't know about. There's other wonders in
Yeah.
this land, and yeah. So just not to give anything away, but you're gonna learn a lot more in coming books.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So and it's fun as hell. So,
Yeah. I think it's also the forest that all of this happens in where Covenant's wounded and I mean I guess we could back up to talk about what happened and why he's hurt. But before we talk about that, he's wounded and he's wandering on his own and he's in the woods, and the spiders heal him. This unfettered woman in the woods heals him as well. Um, I think it's the same forest from the first book where they're walking through or they're riding through, and he keeps getting all of these moss stains all over his clothes, and he's so frustrated that no one else is getting as dirty as he is. And why does the forest keep rubbing on him? He's so mad about it. Uh, and I don't know. That's just one of my favorite parts of the first one. So I like that we
That's
got to
funny.
go back there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
And maybe it's sort of like back then the forest was judging him and now it's saving him. I don't know if there's a real kind of thematic thing to analyze there or not, uh, but yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so okay, so I guess backing up to why he's so wounded, with all this stuff with the Ramen questioning Bum followers' intentions and Covenant's intentions, uh, there's this strange, awkward young man who shows up, and everyone's kind of whispering about him and murmuring about how bizarre he is and how eerie and unsettling this person is. And we come to find out this is uh, Pieton, the boy who they saved uh, from a battle in the middle of the first book, and they left him with the ramen. And then I guess he tips off the bad guys about where the ramen are, and everyone's fleeing, and then he confronts Covenant and Lena, and he kills Lena, I think, and then Covenant kills him.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, j just this really dark ending to this child's story who we saw back in book one. He and his mother had both there was something kind of dark. They'd both been traumatized in a way, but there was
Mhm.
sort of like that literalized, there's actually something magically like that's been changed about them.
Mm.
And to see it end in just this devastating way is, and for of course Covenant is thinking to himself, well, I should have never had Lena come along with us. This is my fault. Yet again, I'm doing more harm than good in this world, and now she's dead. Now I'm about to die, and this boy is never, he never got to actually live his life. Um, yeah, his thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's bringing up a lot of stuff that
Yeah. So,
trying
yeah.
to remember about, but it was really I think it's just another aspect adding to the weight of despair that's trying to overcome Covenant.
Yeah.
This is what Lord Fowl wants. He wants Covenant to be so low that because Fowl wants something from all this,
Yeah.
and his means of getting it is to put this kind of pressure on Covenant, put this kind of despair on Covenant, and what greater means of doing that than corrupting somebody that was saved in the
Right.
first.
Right.
What greater means of doing that than having the fruits of your effort rotten,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what that symbolizes, that whole sequence, and the fact that and Lena dying as well is also your means of redemption is gone.
Right. Right.
So that it leads to more despair.
Yeah.
How can I ever redeem myself with the person I injured the most if they're not here
Yeah.
anymore? And so it's really disheartening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a book's a bit of a bummer. It's
Yeah,
uh, one
yeah,
way. Um. Yeah. Okay. So now I'll jump ahead to some of the foam follower stuff we get towards the end,
yeah,
where they're going through the they're getting closer and closer to Ridgect home, and they get through just this maze like uh I guess these like maze like tunnels between the valleys and stuff, um and I guess they're all tunnels that would lead to one entrance to the mountain, but they're going to take a different entrance where they have to cross a river of lava. Does this
Oh,
scene jump out in your mind?
absolutely.
Yeah,
That is one of the scenes that stuck with me
yeah,
throughout the years. That was so powerful. Phone follower carrying Covenant
yeah.
through that river of
As
lava,
he's sinking,
you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that because we've seen phone follower put his hands in fire before
Right, right.
to do the thing called the Camorra,
Yeah,
um, which is kind of like a cleansing, and this was just the ultimate Camorra. It was the
yeah,
ultimate cleansing, and I just it's so powerful. Just phone follower's reaction through it and his determination to get Covenant where he needs to go. And of course, Covenant's, you know, all of his emotions at phone follower making this sacrifice for him is just, I thought it's one of the most powerful scenes I've ever read in a book.
yeah, yeah.
And it's really, that's one of the things that stuck with me the whole time and made me want to reread them basically because
Okay, yeah, yeah,
it's such a powerful scene.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's hard to read, and I think but it's also it feels. I can feel this sort of cleansing power of it.
Yeah.
And there's that little doubt in your mind that's like, well, if he can put his hands in fire and be okay. And then when he goes under the lava flows, Covenant's still there, even though at this point both Treyarch and Foam Follower are seemingly gone from the land. Of course, we
Mm,
find out Foam Follower is okay. He he
yeah.
makes it out to kind of help one last time at the very end of the book. But yeah, I just love I love the Kimura aspect of it. I love that you brought that up because now I'm thinking, is this sort of his moment where, as critical as the ramen were of him for not being there to help save the Giants and not basically not being around for the second book, and for the failure of the Giant race, like whether or not they're justified in their criticism, I'm sure he feels so burdened by all of that, and I'm sure he's just so tormented about his failure to protect his people or stand by them in like during the slaughter. So this is maybe sort of like a moment of healing for him. So he yeah he sort of redeems himself, I guess, or
Yeah.
not sort of. He totally redeems himself, whether or not we feel like he needed to. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, he does it.
No, no, he felt like he needed to,
Right, right.
the and phone follow. As glad as I was to see him
Hmm.
throughout the much of the book, he was he was down on himself a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't the happy-go-lucky giant we saw in the first
Right.
book,
Right. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, until this point, until he has this great cleansing,
Yeah.
and then I think later he's kind of captured or whatever and changed,
Yeah, or
whatever it was.
he's there at the end when Covenant's
Yeah, yeah,
confronting Lord Fowl, and
right, yeah,
he says he like washed ashore down the river, but like a little more complicated than just washing ashore because it's magma and whatnot. Uh, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit or kind of go back to Moram briefly and the siege of Revelstone. Uh, and just talk, just kind of sit in that depressing space for a minute, with people starving. One of the other lords, she's refusing to eat so that her children can eat, and Moram's telling her, "No, we need your power more than we need
Mm,
your children to not starve,"
right.
basically. And just gut-wrenching stuff, but also really cool action just with the way that the whole place is set up because they have the tower kind of outside of the main kind of cliff face and the plateau. And so first they're defending that, but then they retreat from that tower and kind of sacrifice that, and they have to go across the courtyard to the main keep. And but then they have another push to retake the tower. Yeah, just real wonderful action. Um, really cool. There's a moment where, um, what's his name? Lena's dad. The
Oh man, I don't remember his name.
Banking on it. It's like Tor or like or it's but Lena's dad, he takes the two doors off of the tunnel that like lead to the courtyard, and he's just like bashing all of the enemies like flooding in with the doors, and he's like throwing them off to the side, and um, really heart-wrenching stuff, but also really great action
Yeah,
too. Um, yeah,
yeah,
I'm curious your thoughts on any of that, the starvation,
yeah. I
action,
mean, that's
yeah.
this this whole battle with Revelstone was the thing that reminded me most of like Helm's Deep
Yeah,
in
sure,
Lord of
yeah,
the Rings.
yeah,
You know, this was kind of it was almost an homage to
yeah.
that feeling. You know, that sense of overwhelming odds coming in and people being worried about, like you said, starvation
Right, right,
and other aspects of siege warfare that are not pleasant.
right, right.
And and you know, y- I mean, you can't ask a mother not to save her children. So, and that just that whole feeling, just helps with the atmosphere and the mood of it all. And
Mhm.
but it also, um, I as like as Donaldson's prose, as much as it's introspective and philosophical and descriptive, he also can write some damn good action as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
you know. And this siege, it was not bogged down by the lack of movement and action.
right, right.
It's very possible to happen in other books. Like as much as there was despair and it didn't look good for a long time, there was also a lot of it went by quickly because of the descriptions of what was going on and the action going on. And so I really enjoyed that because it allowed us to get back to the other parts of the story that you're really invested in, and without because too many times I've seen action scenes written that just seem to go on and
Yeah,
on and on, and you're like, okay, I want to just get back to
yeah,
the story itself,
right,
but that
right.
doesn't happen here.
Yeah, no,
And it's really really cool to read that while still getting the whole sense of what despair is doing to this place.
and then there's cool like defensive siege like ingenuity like with the um I guess they have like arrows or something that can blow up on impact, or they invent these things, and they're shooting those at the catapults, and yeah, just some stuff that you would expect of a siege, but even the siege weaponry and defenses are invested in some way with the unique magic of Donaldson's world. So,
Yeah,
and that all I think keeps it feeling like this is a siege that can only happen in this book. Some fantasy, you
yeah,
read a siege and you're like, this could kind of be out of like a history book about a siege, but this one is it's very unique and particular to
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Very imaginative,
Hmm.
specific to the place. Very imaginative fantasy stuff
Yeah.
that that we all should be expecting from our fantasy. It's
Yeah.
just
So
really
you made a comment about like it sort of gives a bit of a Helm's Deep feeling at times, and that reminded me that I wanted to kind of on the point of structure. I wanted to talk a little bit about comparing this trilogy structurally to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But mo more just to kind of air one of my biggest frustrations with when and how people talk about Tolkien, um, and how I think this trilogy kind of can help. Donaldson's trilogy here helps to highlight the problem that I have with a lot of the conversation about Tolkien structure. A lot of people talk about Lord of the Rings as having that traditional fantasy structure, which I find a little bit bizarre because Sure, the Fellowship of the Ring might. However, I think the fact that Two Towers and Return of the King are split in half, uh, half of each book covering one set of characters, and then the other half goes back and tells the story of what's going on with the other set of characters. Uh, you sort of have a similar thing happen in book two and three of Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, where it's not so cleanly like split down the middle in half, but in book two, the kind of middle 200 pages is all Heil Troy, and then the last 150 pages or so is what Thomas Covenant was doing in the meantime. With this book, I think has more with Power That Preserves, I feel like has more of what we'd come to expect from a modern fantasy epic, where we're bouncing back and forth between these multiple perspectives a little bit more. Granted, there is a slight difference where a lot of times when we read something like Malazan, for instance, um, we might read one scene, we'll read a totally new scene with different characters, and unless explicitly alluded to or like stated, we assume this scene happened before the scene with those characters. Now, what Donaldson's still doing that Tolkien was doing is that when he jumps over to another group of characters, it's a lot of like catching up what they've been doing in the meantime. So it's not quite like modern fantasy pacing or perspective splitting, but it is getting there a little bit more. But yeah, I just wanted to say I don't think Lord of the Rings really stays wedded to the typical fantasy structure that a lot of people think of when they think of
Mm.
fantasy. And um, I think these books definitely don't adhere to any kind of typical fantasy structure. They don't adhere to Tolkien's version or um, what we expect nowadays. Sorry, that was a
Yeah.
bit of a long-winded kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I'm not a you know, I've read Lord of the Rings twice. Um and like once again, it was a long time ago. But but that's an interesting thing because I think it depends upon what you mean by traditional fantasy structure. Like
Right, right.
where do you put your line
Right.
for
And if
what?
someone is just talking about the Frodo story, that could sort of make sense. That said, Frodo fails at the end.
Yeah,
In a way, I mean, it's really more Sam and Smeagol by mistake who succeed. So
yeah, you're
uh,
right.
there's
Yeah, well, that's part of the point. Is
yeah,
it's like where what is where do you where at what point in time do you say this is the traditional fantasy structure? Because
right,
Lord of the Rings was anything but traditional when it
right,
first
right,
came
right.
out, and the people who were the people who were inspired by the Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings and were influenced by it did their own thing. And
Right, right,
having the hero come out on top at the end wasn't Lord of the Rings. I mean, it kind
right,
of was, but it wasn't like you said, it was an accident.
yeah,
And that's but who's gonna look at the Lord of the Rings and also write an accident as
right, right, right.
so it's kind of interesting that I think it being inspired by something and then writing your own thing. Um, I think a lot of times people put too much emphasis on similarities
Yeah.
between books and stuff like that rather than seeing them as their own unique
Right,
thing first
right, right.
and then saying, "Oh, I like this here and I like it there as well." But these books in particular, I found so unique um, that I didn't think about the Lord of the Rings when I was reading these.
Okay,
You
yeah.
know, um, well, I read these first actually, but
Okay, okay.
but I didn't think about these books when I read the Lord of the Rings. So it and vice versa, and because they're really their own unique things. And
Yeah,
sure, I see now that Donaldson um, liked was definitely playing on some of the stuff that Lord of the Rings did. Um, but still, it's such unique way that he did it,
yeah.
and You can say he was subverting some things and what have you and stuff like that, but let the stories stand for what they are, and that's it's the same with Malazan and
Right,
Wars of
right.
Light and Shadow and all those things, Game of Thrones, what have you. So um, it, fantasy doesn't have to be defined by one thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we could talk about the end a little bit.
Yeah,
How Covenant is or he is successful in defeating Lord Fowl. And then the creator gives him the choice, or basically he'll grant one wish, or like he'll grant him something, and the creator first offers to heal him in his home world, I believe. Um, but then Covenant asks that he just save Foam Follower's life instead. Uh, to which the creator says, "No, I can't go back in time and I can't break the
the
uh,
Arc of Time.
Arch
Yeah,
of Time." Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and so then he does accept the offer to be healed in his home world. I believe he
Well,
accepts the offer.
it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
to be healed
Or
full. Like he's not healed from the
right.
leprosy,
No, no, no. But
just his immediate
right.
hurts.
And
Yeah,
it wasn't even the venom from the snake that was doing it so much as the
it was.
anti-venom that gave
Yeah,
him was having an allergic reaction to, which is
yeah.
kind of it's funny. I mean, it's like it's dark, but it's kind of funny, like that twist, um, dark twist of fate at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it kind of fits into the like what was going on in the land because
Yeah.
sometimes the cure is just as harmful as the
Right, right.
the injury or the poison, um and that relates to relates to book 2 with Alina's decision to break the law of death.
Right, right.
The cure is worse than what was going on,
Right, right.
and that's kind of a theme that's also running throughout the thing, the whole series, and so it was, yeah, like you said, it was the anti-venom that was he had allergic reaction to it. He wasn't reacting well to it, just like he's not reacting well to everything that happens in the
Right,
land.
in the land, yeah.
So it kind of fits.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved in the very beginning of this book, the where was it? It was oh yeah, right on the first page, or the first 2 pages. Um, he was he was like kind of delirious, and he was thought he was talking to Alina, but he was
Oh
actually
yeah.
it was actually somebody else there. But
Yeah.
and he says, what the hell did he say? He says, law is not the opposite of despite. And I
Mhm.
thought that was a very important line
Yeah.
because everybody, like, the staff of law was this huge item, this huge thing. And he says that in the beginning, and that kind of relates to the ending. It wasn't law that overcame
Yeah.
Lord Fowl. It was joy and what have you. Foam followers laughter and and uh and that. So and that just relates to him breaking the staff of law
Yeah.
eventually.
Right, right.
This is not the way to overcome
Uh-huh.
this problem. And I just love that because it's a different way of looking at how to overcome this problem. And it's not like I'm gonna go get King Arthur, I'm gonna get the magic sword and boom,
Yep.
it's it's n yeah, you can't do that way. You have to there's there's not a strict opposite to what we can do to overcome despair and despite. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks for pointing out that quote. I think that's perfect. I think that's wonderful. That connection. Yeah. I'm gonna ask maybe one more question. We're kind of we're almost to the point, or about to kind of the length that these other ones have been. Um, but at ICFA, the conference this past March, Donaldson told me that he felt that Erickson is constantly expanding his world, whereas he himself, Donaldson, is collapsing his world. And I was just curious if, like, what your thoughts were on that comment that he made. He didn't elaborate when I asked.
Wow.
Well,
Wow, I didn't know that.
partly, I don't think he elaborated because I hedged it with, I haven't read your trilogy yet, so I don't know if there would be something that's spoiled. And so I think he wanted to, be respectful and
Not
not
spoil it,
ruin
yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Wow. I had to think about that.
Yeah, I
That's
know. Yeah, sorry. It's sort of like an
that
essay question. Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah, I expect an essay on that when you're done with the
right,
series.
right.
But
Yeah.
but, that's funny. Yeah, no, I wish I was there for that. I would have been like, "Ooh, okay."
Yeah.
But the, anything that, Mr. Donaldson says at ICFR is profound in many
Yeah.
ways. But
Yeah.
but, the, uh, I I'm specifically thinking about the last Chronicles, the
Yeah.
last 4
Oh,
books,
okay. Okay.
and I think that's what he's referring to
Oh, okay. Okay.
when
Gotcha.
he said
Okay.
that.
Mhm.
So and it's been a while. It's been 20, almost 20 years since I read those.
Gotcha.
um, but the I have a feeling that that's what he's referring to specifically.
Okay.
I don't think you'll find that in the second trilogy.
Okay.
Um, I think you'll definitely find that in the last series, and that makes sense considering what we know about Malazan because we both read those,
Right. Right.
um, and that makes sense for Malazan because yeah, it just makes
Yeah.
sense.
It
So I
keeps
could
sort of expanding away from w- any sense of a central thing that you maybe think is the center idea that you should be following with the first book. Like
exactly,
each
yeah,
book just keeps
yeah,
kind of going in its own or yeah, different unique directions. Yeah.
yeah, exactly right, yeah. Um, so yeah, that it makes sense is with the last 4 books in mind.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, makes absolute sense,
Yeah.
actually.
And I could kind of see it with this first trilogy, or at least with the third book, in that the second one feels a bit expansive. More people from the real world, more regions we're going to that we haven't been to before, a bunch of new characters. And this third one, it's a lot of kind of returning to some of the places that we're more familiar with. So maybe there's a little bit of that in there, a little bit of collapsing there. I don't know. Even
Yeah,
though remember or I've been thinking about him saying this while I was reading these, I haven't really come up with a good
yeah, well,
response. Yeah.
I think it's because, maybe it does all come down to covenant and foul.
Right, right.
And so as much as he may give you more of this land, the land, eventually it still comes back to those 2.
Okay,
And
okay,
that's probably, the gist of what he's
okay.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, well, I don't know that I have anything else to add, or do you have any final thoughts on this trilogy or
I
warnings
think
for the next one?
warnings, yeah, warnings. Be prepared to be amazed. That's
Okay.
pretty much it, Um, yeah, there was one thing, the, the interaction with the creator at the
Oh
end.
yeah, yeah,
It's very, very brief,
yeah.
um, but it makes you wonder, um, is the creator the actual author
Right, of the
of
story. Yeah,
of
yeah,
this story?
yeah.
Is the creator or is the creator, um, somebody else in Covenant's head? Because Thomas Covenant is a writer.
Right, right, yeah.
Um, is he just another is he the aspect of the creator, is he the writer of the series, or is the creator? Um, is Covenant himself just a creation of the creator?
Right, right,
There's a lot of
right. And well,
things to
because if
unpack there.
Covenant is the creator of the creator, then he would also be the origin of Fowl,
Yes, yeah,
which is re very fascinating to
yeah. There's a lot
kind of think about. Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of metaphysical
Yeah.
aspect to think about there, and the so it's just something to leave you with
Okay.
because it's only a page at the end. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's very short, but
Uh-huh.
it just makes you wonder. Uh, because just like law is not the opposite of despite, the creator might not necessarily be the opposite of Lord Fowl.
Right, right.
It, so is who what is and well, does there need to be an opposite per se? Is
Yeah.
there supposed to be that kind of balance, or is it supposed to be some other thing? And so yeah, that's something to think about going forward. What is that relationship? What does that mean?
Okay, yeah.
And this whole idea of breaking the arc of time. Um, of course, we know that Fowl wants to escape where he is,
Yeah.
and he wants to do that. What is it about the creator that allows him that means he's outside the what does that mean that he's outside the arc of time?
Right, right.
And so there's a bunch of questions that come with the last page of this book that that you're like that goes beyond the story, the cool, really awesome story we got.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on to do all these conversations. I'll definitely be in touch as I continue to read the next trilogy. I still have to read the short story that you mentioned that is sort of that excerpted chapter from book two.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to all of that. I'm back in school now, so the time that I have to do these readings, not a ton, but we'll see. I'd like to at least read one or two more before uh, maybe the next conference this year.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. This is such a blast to go back and
yeah.
remember all these things. I really enjoy it.
Okay, thank you again, and thanks everyone for watching. Yeah, thanks. Have a good one. Bye.